The media in Greece have had an election to cover, the country's first since the explosion of the financial crisis. Greek journalists haven't just been covering the economic story, they have found themselves part of it. Their industry is amongst the worst affected. Media outlets have been shut down. There have been big layoffs, and many of those who still have jobs are dealing with significant pay cuts. Of equal concern to Greek media consumers is the way the economic story is being reported. Media outlets owned by conglomerates have been accused of putting the corporate agendas of their paymasters ahead of journalistic considerations. Then there's the suggestion that alternative economic points of view do not get a fair hearing in the Greek media, unlike the bromides proposed by outside organizations such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. The Listening Post's Marcela Pizarro now from Athens on the story of the Greek media's own financial crisis and whether news outlets in the country that gave the world democracy are reflecting the concerns of the people or those of big business.
Greeks tuning into the news on April 4th were in for a surprise. Right in the middle of a political talk show, there was a food fight, Greek style. Protesters stormed the studios of Epiros TV, throwing yogurt at the host and his guest, a far-right politician. Greek media are suffering. The anti-austerity protests included chants against capitalist media and biased coverage of the financial crisis. Many Greek journalists cannot even call themselves part of the media anymore, like the employees at Alta TV. Having been paid for most of 2011, staff did not just go on strike. 6 months ago, they seized control of Alta TV's frequency and broadcast their pay demands. The channel went off the air. For the past 3 months, Alta TV's employees have camped out in the building, living off donations and cooking meals on what was once the set of a food show.
We hope that we will find our jobs again and that we get paid and that the employer gives us all our money, all the money that he owes us.
For the workers at Eleftherotypia, once Greece's most prominent left-leaning newspaper, there's almost no hope of their paychecks coming. Last August, the paper stopped paying wages and later it filed for bankruptcy. The staff came together and printed 2 editions of their own paper under the masthead Workers of Eleftherotypia. Dimitri Trimas, a veteran reporter at the paper, is now president of the Athens Journalists Union, the first one in the union's history to be out of work.
I worked at Eleftherotypia for 23 years, and now 800 of us have been left unemployed. The media sector in this country grew in a very irrational way. Banks, the economic and political elite were all linked to the media. So when the economic bubble burst, it had a series of adverse effects on the media industry.
Some of the effects began even before the layoffs and bankruptcies. In the 2 years of this crisis, coverage by the mainstream media has become an issue. Greece's huge debt, the measures to prevent a default, the austerity packages. Every element in this financial saga has been controversial, and the way that the Greek media have covered the story is part of the story.
Mainstream media are trying to bring chaos and panic to the population. They say that everything will collapse.
Θα έρθει το χάος. Η Ελλάδα θα κατρακυλήσει στον τρίτο κόσμο.
ATMs will not have money to give you.
Τα σενάρια που έχουν εκπονήσει, Παύλο, οι οικονομολόγοι για την επιστροφή στην δραχμή.
So you have to obey what the foreign financial institutions and what the government is saying.
Sky Television has taken the most stridently pro-austerity and reform line and has been in favor of liberalization of the economy, the reduction in bureaucracy, many of the things that the troika of Greece's creditors is advocating that Greece implement.
The problem with the Greek media today is not just that thousands have been left out of work. It's also that democracy is on the line. The very same people who created this crisis insist today that they will overcome it. In reality, what they do is that they manipulate public opinion. They're matching the policies of the Troika and the IMF, and they control journalism.
Critics of Sky, one of Greece's largest media groups, point to the fact that the same family owns Kyklades Shipping and that these other business interests affect their news coverage. We spoke to Sky owner Yannis Alafoussos, who disputes that idea.
Most media are not looking at the reality of the situation, that Greece messed up, that we have a huge amount of debt, that we are bankrupt, and that third parties had to impose rule on us because we couldn't do it ourselves. You know, when somebody goes bankrupt and their bank is willing to help them, you follow the demands of the bank.
That economic orthodoxy is not universally shared. Aris Chatzistefanou, a former Sky journalist, is one of its loudest critics. He was laid off a year ago because, he says, of the political views he aired on his radio show. His documentary, Debtocracy, did not help his case. It was a scathing critique of the dominant media narrative about what went wrong in Greece.
I think that we are living under a media dictatorship. When the media owners decide to fire thousands of employees, they can choose who they will fire. So they will choose to throw out the people that had an alternative point of view.
Chatzistefanou has taken Sky to court, but his former boss says the firing was not about freedom of expression, but about an employee being partisan.
I think that he's not right telling that he didn't have the opportunity and the freedom to do what he wanted to do, journalistically speaking. But came a point when he took a political stand. And by taking a political stand, it was a partisan way of seeing things. And then I think that the best way for both of us was to be separated.
With so many media outlets under financial pressure, new media alternatives have emerged, such as Unfollow and Mono magazines, set up by journalists sacked from their jobs. There's also Radio Bubble, a community web station. These new voices offer different perspectives and challenge existing market-driven forms of journalism.
All those who've been thrown out of the media should organize themselves and create their own experimental cooperatives, which can provide real information, as opposed to the directives coming from the elites who are selling austerity and authoritarianism.
People want to get this alternative perspective to the news, even when they disagree with what we are saying. So we are not saying that we are balanced, we are saying that we are bringing an alternative point of view.
Because in a country that gave the world democracy, there should be room for alternative points of view. They are out there, but Greeks in the market for thinking that comes from outside the mainstream will have to look somewhere other than their television screens to find it.